In this video, I'm going to ask you 3 very simple questions. If you can use the ideas in this video to answer them for yourself, I can guarantee you that you're going to have a smooth start into med school and you're going to get ahead very quickly. Trust me, and let's get started. Hi everyone. Here's another tool to add to your inventory. My name is Akshita and I'm an international med student studying the Bachelor of Medical Studies and Doctor of Medicine at UNSW Sydney. Today, at a halfway point of my degree, I want to look back and see what were the most important things that I think I could have accelerated and prepped myself for so that I could get ahead in uni, so that you can do the same for your journey before you even start. Let's get into that list. Alright, so the first question that I'm going to ask you to get you ahead in med school is, what is your study technique? Hold on. This question needs a little bit of thought, so hang on with me. Everybody who graduates high school has certain study techniques that they have used to get through their toughest HSCs, CBSE boards, all those IB exams. They're hell anyways. And because you are all entering med school, you've done well with them. So they are methods that you would have grown to trust or that you know for sure work. For some people it could be making notes, for some people it could be reading the textbook, for some it could be annotating, whatever that might be. But any university, whether it's med or not, is going to be different from how high school was. So you're going to have lectures, a lot of self-directed learning, assignments, and your preset method that helped you in high school may or may not help you in med school. So in the holidays that you have that are between your high school and med school and you're done with your offers and all of that, it might be worth rethinking your study strategy and figuring out maybe the top 1 or 2 strategies that you want to try and set as your study technique in med school. For me, I did that experimenting during med school, during the weeks where I'm prepping for my exam. And as a result, there were some experiments that went flop, which means I lost marks on them. And so avoid that kind of situation for yourself and try and test these study techniques before you get into med school. What do I mean by testing study techniques? One of the study techniques that I definitely wanted to try out was flashcards. Anki flashcards, the software. And from me watching and binge watching a lot of Rachel Southern's videos, you probably know that YouTuber, I knew that you need the specific settings in Anki and the specific way of making flashcards and knowing what you're going to do to supplement your study of these flashcards, and only then that technique is going to make it work. Otherwise, the flashcards are just going to make you rote learn stuff. So to get that right, I needed to learn the software by itself. So adding on things, adding plugins, learning how to do image blurring, learning how to make fill in the blank kind of questions. I did all of those and finally struck a balance where I knew how to make these flashcards. There were a lot of my friends who tried to use flashcards towards the exam preparation time and they couldn't do it because they did not know how to use the software and they weren't used to it. So for other techniques, such as writing down notes, try and test how fast you can actually do that, and if that's a feasible thing to do when you have 60 lectures thrown to you in 3 or 4 weeks of time. If you want to type out notes into a Word document and think that that's going to be your main way of taking in content from lectures, try and test your typing speed to see if you actually can keep up with a lecturer who is speaking in real time and is not going to pause. And if not, try and improve your typing speed to get it up to that point where you can make those kind of Word documents. If you're going to annotate, go and check those notes that you want to annotate on and see if they are really something that you understand and you can use to annotate and make it your own. So test these methods out and at least have 1 or 2 that you think you're going to try. They still might not work in med school, but at least you know what options you're going to try, and you always have your high school technique to fall back on. So make sure you have that answer clear in your mind. The second question that I'm going to ask you to get you ahead in med school: what is your parent study resource? What do I mean by this? In uni, you're going to get multiple modes of teaching. You're going to get lectures which is just throwing information at you. You're going to have practicals where you're asked to participate in activities and answer questions to get you to understand what you've already learned in lectures or something new. And in the hospital, you are coming across a random cohort of patients and learning their medical conditions and understanding how to diagnose and manage them, which is a very much on the spot and completely random order learning, because you can't dictate what kind of conditions the patients come in with. I used to make flashcards for lectures because I knew that flashcards worked for me. I used to participate heavily in the practicals, but I wasn't really noting stuff down. Even if I did, I was noting them down on a book. And then in the hospital, I had a set clinical notebook on which I was scribbling 24/7. Every time I felt like there was something new to think about, I would write it down. So by the end of the year, when I had to prepare for my exams, I had the lecture flashcards, but I knew that the flashcards don't cover everything that I've learned in the pracs and hospitals. I have the pracs half-written, half-vague memory things that don't cover anything more than that. And then I have this big chunk of hospital notes that I probably haven't touched in a whole year. So I had a very inconsistent mix of things to revise from when it actually came down to doing my exam. This also made a difference in the level of knowledge I had from all of these things. Lectures, because I'd done the flashcards, I was getting the active learning and spaced repetition that you probably know of by now. When I'm practicing in the practicals and participating in them, I'm getting that active learning, but I'm not getting the spaced repetition because I don't do that practical again. And in the hospital, I'm just making notes, so that's completely passive, no active learning, no spaced repetition. So I had a very varying levels of knowledge expertise by the end and while I'm revising for my exam. So it made it really difficult to bring all my knowledge at a baseline, because I did not have something to go back to and say, if I know everything from this resource, I know I have prepared for my exam. So I'm asking you to make sure you have decided what resource is going to be your parent resource that you go back to and say, this has everything, this is what I need to focus on first. For me, in my case scenario, I should have either committed to the flashcards and said, everything I study has to at some point go into a flashcard so I can put it into the algorithm and learn it. Or I should have committed to the note writing process and written notes for everything so that I can compile them into one and then just do active learning on that. You can either choose textbooks. Often easy to just mark the chapters that were relevant to a lecture so that you come back and you're like, okay, I need to know this entire particular chapter from this book. A lot of my friends use flashcards like crazy, pour in every single thing into a flashcard and finish 100, 200,000 flashcards a day. This is why a lot of them still stick to writing notes, even though it's the most passive form of learning, because you want that database, you want that one place where you can be reassured that everything's together. Or you could choose a senior's notes as your database and keep adding stuff to it or removing stuff to it based on how you like it. And I think that's a really good solution, because you're not spending time writing notes yourself, but you are also adding and removing things in to make it personalized to you. The last question that's going to get you ahead in med school: what kind of extracurriculars do you usually like? No university experience is complete without doing extracurriculars. At no point in your career are you ever going to put your academics above your extracurriculars and say your marks are the only thing that matter to you. That doesn't happen. As you're going to put thought in your study, you have to put thoughts in your extracurriculars as well. Now in uni, there are specific different types of extracurriculars. You can have event organizing. So you are mainly doing the administrative work of putting an event together for the university students. You could be into advocating, which is really cool because you get into causes that you feel strongly for. So, the LGBTQI community and their integration into society, or sexual health and awareness of that, mental health awareness, refugee health, and different societies that are related to these issues. And then you get to put forward ideas, create events that help bring up that notion and bring up the agenda of that particular society. These are also roles where you start going into elected roles where you push for votes in the university, all of those things. And then you can have things like teaching. So you can be involved in creating worksheets and study tunes for junior students. Or you could go completely wild and do something like me, start a YouTube channel. Now, the reason why I ask you to think about this is because events, advocating, things that are centered around short bursts of things often require, give you unpredictable amounts of workload very close to the event, to a point where you can't really do much other than that. I felt like I wasn't really good at handling, sudden bouts of work to a point where I can't do anything else. I don't like that kind of pattern. So event organizing and advocating was really not something I wanted to get into. I wanted something that has a consistent workload and has a predictable schedule. YouTube worked like that for me because it was something that I push on my own. There is no such deadline, and the max deadline is a routine thing of every Friday, every single week, no questions asked. So think about what kind of activities you have been doing so far that you like, what kind of activities that you would want to try out. Now, I want you to be a little bit flexible with your answer here, because a lot of these things you just haven't been exposed to because uni is a new experience. So keep your mind a little bit open with this one. Try things out. First year is the best year to try out everything so that you know what doesn't work for you and what you do want to try and focus on in the future. And just enjoy your first year in uni. Alright, that's it. Those are the 3 questions I recommend you ask yourself and find the answers to get a smooth head start into med school. If you liked the things that you've heard of in this video, make sure to give it a like and share it around to any university student who is starting off and might find this useful. If you want to see more content like this and want to see what living in Australia as an international med student is like, subscribe to this channel, make this inventory your own. But until next Friday,